Good evening, cult members. Welcome to Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And welcome to our discussion, reaction, breakdown, review, wild speculation of episode 2 of season 3 of The Mandalorian, chapter 18, called The Mines of Moria. Mines of Mandalore. I'm going to start off here. I've seen this episode twice now. If you do not like the show, then stop watching it.
Right.
This is deep mythological storytelling of Star Wars. And if you don't get that, then you don't understand Star Wars. And I'm just done with this conversation of, well, this episode wasn't as good as blah 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 blah. Because you didn't get it. And I'm not one to sit here and tell people, like, you didn't get it. I'm gonna explain it to you like this is from my point of view. Like, I really think that this thing is amazing. However, if you're gonna sit here and bash something because it didn't do the fun whatever it didn't go in the direction I thought it was gonna go in, and now you say the episode's terrible, IGN, fix your TV screen if you can't see it. then I'm not here for that conversation. Now that I got that out of the way, let's talk about how awesome this episode is. Because we got a mythosaur.
Well, we got a mythosaur eyeball and side of a face.
Inside of it kind of turned its head real quick, but are you okay? On my bingo card of the year of this season for The Mandalorian, I did not get Bo-Katan's freaking redemption arc. I did not get freaking Purgles, and I didn't get a mythosaur. Like, I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah, you should have just thrown that bingo card out.
I'm done. I'm out. Now that I've had my little rant and kind of whatever, how do you feel about this episode?
I thought it was good. I thought it was fun. It was, I mean, yeah, it was, adventure-y, and we finally got to see Mandalore, and I'm sure there's a name for it, but the eyeball thing.
Yeah, that was super creepy.
That was not a Star Wars thing. Like, that was, like, I was watching it and I was like, I've never seen anything in Star Wars that looks or feels like that.
Some people are saying Grievous-like. And I see that. I can see how because it's got multiple arms and it kind of moves kind of weird or whatever. I saw the robot from Lost in Space, the Netflix series.
Yeah, but it's not. It's an eyeball.
Right.
That inhabits all these robotic mechanisms to get it around. Everything from like a little roach-like thing that's kind of, I guess, the ultimate encapsulation of the eyeball. Which, by the way, how is an eyeball sentient? Like, does it have to have a brain?
And there might be a brain in there. All we see is the eyeball.
But it's pretty small.
Yeah.
I don't know. To the robotic thing that I guess the upright human walking thing is kind of Grievous, like with the multiple arms, and then the like spider thing. I mean, the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, this doesn't feel like a Star Wars IG-11.
You're right. Like, this has it has all that particular monster, and I'm going to call it a monster.
Sure.
We don't get that kind of Star Wars.
Yeah. Especially
in live action. We have gotten some weird stuff in Clone Wars, and we get some weird stuff in Rebels, and you can kind of get away with that in because it's animation. It's a little bit easier to kind of pull off something like that. But the idea of this entity surviving
Yeah.
on sucking the blood out of Mandalorians who are trying to come
Bathe in the
salvage,
waters or whatever.
go living waters or whatever it is. Uh, that's some next level horror stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Eh,
Just uh, the robotics itself, and then, yeah, like you said, the horror. I mean, it's, Lucas always the prequels and all 9 basically of
yeah,
these Luke of the,
Skywalker.
Skywalker saga are, kinda kid friendly, not
Right.
I mean, yeah, this was scary.
Yeah, yeah, this was scary. There's some times in Clone Wars where it gets a little scary, a little dark and a little scary. And then for like little kids, there's some like scary stuff and like the Ewoks adventures and stuff like that. But that's really made for like 6, 7 year olds, and
Yeah,
4 year olds are watching it and going, that's good. The 2 year olds are watching it
they don't
with their
freak it out.
bigger brothers and sisters. You ever watched a movie and thought like this is just visually amazing, and I just love the way it looks, and the colors are amazing? Well, our friends over at Movie Palette have come up with these great pieces of art that you could put up on your wall to show your love of movies without really necessarily being overly dramatic about it. Think of a movie barcode kind of thing, where you can look at the colors and know what the movie is, but it's very, very subtle. If you know us, we are into Tron Legacy. The music and the lights and the color itself is just amazing. Just to give you an idea of what they have, go to moviepalette.com, find your own personal favorite movie, your movie color palette, and have it hang on your wall. At checkout, put in Pop Culture 15 to get 15% off. Thank you, Movie Palette, for sponsoring this video. Link is in the description down below. And don't forget, use Pop Culture 15 at checkout to get 15% off your order. So, there's so much in this episode, and I don't want to go more than 20 minutes. But when they started this season, we knew that he was going to go to Mandalore.
Right.
And a lot of people were like, last week kind of felt like let's get caught up with the gang again, because most people didn't watch the Book of Boba Fett, and most first episodes of a season are that way.
Right, yeah.
It's not anything. We didn't get any big reveal outside of the Purgles, which is a huge reveal for those of us who love Rebels so much. But them going to Mandalore on episode 2,
Yeah, I didn't think they were gonna I thought that was gonna be at the end of the season.
I thought that was going to be like the mid-season finale. We don't have mid-season finales
Yeah,
when there's 12 episodes, but
yeah,
that felt like the mid-season finale. Like they set everything up about going to getting this new chip for IG-88
yeah,
and or IG-11,
IG-11.
IG-11, and and so it they've set this up over the last 2 seasons that it's the adventure of the week. It's the side quest of the week
Yeah,
with the underlying story. No, we're right into the story. Like
yeah,
going to Mandalore and having that all done is such a hugely important story point for the second episode.
yeah, and so now where are we going,
That
right?
right, right,
Where are
and
we gonna go from here? Because, like, I kind of felt like that was what this whole season was gonna be about, was him trying to get there, and there'd be all these obstacles and blah, 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 and, he'd get all these side quests that would take him away from, like, going to get the IG-11 chip. I think, somebody we watched was kinda, like, saying that this was gonna be this side quest that's gonna take him away from going to Mandalore, but no.
no,
I mean, he went to Pelly, she's like, "Sorry, but here's this, here's Red." And
yeah, we call him Red in the house. He's R5, but he's
yeah,
Red.
and, it and him taking Red with him was like that was a huge step for him because I and when he first took him, I was like, how far we've come. In the very first episode of the very first season, he's like, "Nope, I don't want that cab because it's got a droid in it."
Yeah,
To trusting this half functioning, scared out of his wits doesn't want to go, and he's cajoling him to get out and go. He's like, "Come on, just go. Stop being." You are cajoling a droid. You wouldn't even get in a cab with one.
Yeah, it's so good. It's it it's it's an example for me to show that Din can evolve as a person.
Right.
We talked about this a lot last week about how the armorer and the running of the cult that she did, and having this ingraining in younglings from a very young age that there is only one way to be a
Right.
Mandalorian, and that she gaslighted him the entire time i- to convince him to go to Mandalore to go on this impossible quest. Um, to have him do that, but then turn around and find companionship with IG-88, IG-11, with IG, with Tika Waititi, um,
In robot form.
in robot form, to friendship and trust in a murder droid. Um, that episode, oh my god, reprogramming learning new ways,
Yeah.
learning like whatever is exactly what the whole series of Book of Boba Fett is, and it's showing to us, the audience, and to Din that you can change your stripes, you can change who you are, you can change
Except when it comes to
this
the path, the
the
way.
creed, the
Yeah.
creed, the creed, the creed, the creed, and I felt like it was so important to reestablish Bo-Katan and their relationship last week, so they could spend the minute when he gets in trouble from this robot eye thing, whatever, um, to have Grogu try to save him. We'll get into the whole Grogu thing in a minute. And then Grogu, going off and getting Bo-Katan and bringing her back, and that she saved him. Let's just go to her in the throne room and her droid showing up, and she's still on the throne. She's not in her room.
Yeah.
And she's got her I'm not leaving the couch blankets
Yeah.
laying there with her because she's in such a depressive mood. She goes from there to I'm just gonna kill him because he keeps coming back
Yeah.
trying for help, and then she, without question, goes and helps him,
Yeah.
saves him, then decides, all right, you know what? Just to get you off my back, I'm going to take you down there. And then you could see it in her face. Katie Sackhoff was so good in this episode. You could see it in her face when he is saying the words to the Kree and walking into the water. She knows what the Creed is. They had a whole conversation about how she did it when she was a child,
Yeah.
because she was a member of the royal family, and she sees the passion that he has for it, and it's bringing her back
Yep.
from the I'm depressed on the couch phase.
Right. Mandalorians are dumb to being proud that she is one and that this was her family, this was her legacy, and yeah, and
And I like that she spends a moment too when he says, I feel sad for you that you knew what it was like before it was here." And she's
yeah.
like, "No, I'm more sad that we fought with each other so much." Now she is part of the problem. She is part of Death Watch. She was part of Death Watch that broke off from Satine and was trying to lead Mandalore back into their warrior ways,
Right.
when her sister was trying to de-escalate him, demilitarize him, and
Right.
all that kind of stuff. And so she's part of that problem. But she points out that we were so busy fighting with each other that we finally got destroyed by an outside force.
Right. And she could have been part of the problem before and have come to realize, talking about growth and about, accepting new ideas and new information as it comes, as it's presented to you,
Yep.
that she now understands that what everybody was doing and what she was a part of was part of the problem.
I, I, I Star Wars is political, so I'm gonna make a political parallel here. So I'm sorry if you are offended by my political part. Din is the religious zealot who was raised in a ultra conservative version of the church. It is our way, nobody else's way. You can't have an outside view of the world. You can't even talk to the outside world. We live in this little compound over here. Bo Katan was raised in a very I want to say conservative, but that's not the right word. Very her parents were good people. Her sister was a good person. So her rebellious streak was to be the bad boy. And so having her and she was part of that the old ways are the good ways. We should all stay we all should stay not this like really crazy sect over here. All of us should be set in our old ways and not learn from ourselves. And it wasn't until she went through the process and she went to college that she realized that that version of the world was not right.
Mhm.
And she even mentions it when she's having the conversation with Grogu. I don't know what they told you our uh about your time about our time with the Jedi, but I used to fight side by side with Jedi.
Mhm.
Obi-Wan, Anakin, uh, Ahsoka, she fought alongside with Rex and everybody. Like so
Yeah.
she had her eyes open to the bigger universe, the bigger world, other
Right.
ideas.
Well, and that statement is very important because misinformation can only be spread because the people that actually know don't say anything.
Yeah.
They curl up in a ball on their throne couch
Throne
with their
couch.
blankie and they just shut themselves away.
Yeah.
And, her sharing that information with Grogu, she is shedding light on she is saying right then, I don't know what you've been told, but here's what actually happened because
Right.
I was there. And so, that kind of um, thinking helps to depower the
The cultish behavior,
e-
the
all of
yeah,
it.
all of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Even the empire,
Yeah.
right? If they can keep people segregated and not let them share information, then they continue to have more power. It's like from the smallest thing all the way up. It not being able to share
It's
information
it's
is
so it's so obvious if you open your eyes for 5 seconds about the story that they're telling in Star Wars. The idea of it's the last big fight in the Rise of Skywalker, which is why Rise of Skywalker is one of my favorite movies. There is more of us. And if the Empire continues to if we continue to let the Empire rule, or the First Order rule, or the Final Order rule, or whatever, they're always going to try to keep us separated from each other because there's more of us.
right.
And
But it's not just the empire.
it's
It's the pirates
yep,
and the cult that Din belongs to. I mean, there's
yeah,
so many different, and that's kind of fallout from you've moved from everybody existing on one planet
yeah,
to people existing all over the place. So the dissemination of information is just infinitely.
yeah. And when they get rid of the central government and both times, and
Yeah.
like it just that, yeah, it's and there's always going to be worlds that are on the fringe that feel disillusioned, and they're kind of dealing with that a little bit in the High Republic, where the High Republic, the Chancellor is trying, Chancellor So is trying to expand to help the outer reaches, and the outer reaches are like, I don't want you to come in here and start telling me how to live my
Yeah.
life, and so it's this constant conversation that's being had in Star Wars, and so to have her sit there and say maybe she's saying it just to say it to make conversation with Grogu, not that he's talking back. Well, I'm going to get to Grogu. I swear to God. But her understanding her own path, but not admitting it to herself, is such a I have been in a deep depression because things didn't go exactly the way I wanted it to go, and now I can't pivot away from that. And now that I can't pivot away from that, I don't know what to do, so I'm lost. And if I'm lost, I have no drive to keep my people together.
Mhm.
And so there's so many levels of what's going on with Bo-Katan. I did not think that this series was going to be about her redemption arc. I thought it was about Din becoming the leader of Mandalore. And at this point in time, with 2 episodes, it's 2 episodes, and they're still in the minds of Mandalore. I think there is going to be a conversation in this show, in this universe, of them co-parenting
Yeah.
the Mandalorian race.
Yeah, and I've heard that. I don't remember if we were talking about it or if
Yeah.
somebody that we were watching was talking about it, but yeah, I've heard that before
She's
that
royal
they
blood,
yeah,
and he's got the
and
sword.
he's got the sword, and if she won't just take the sword out of his hand, and
Yeah.
I mean, and by the way, you see him fighting
That was the next conversation.
the Morlocks, right? They're the Morlocks from H.G. Wells, um, and he's fighting with it as he has been the whole time, and then it gets thrown down on the floor, and she picks it up and just chops all the
Yeah.
legs off the spider thing. So
With a sword and shield.
with with a laser sword and a laser shield. Yeah. So I noticed that. I was like, huh, yeah.
I'm glad you noticed that because I was gonna bring it up. That is a big thing. That Den's still fighting it because Den doesn't want the responsibility for it.
Yep.
And the sword knows, which is a whole different conversation we could have on a different time.
And I feel like it's for better or worse, it's a little like the Force, and you've got to give yourself over to it. And he is in no
He's not there yet.
place
He's
to
not
be
there
able to give him. He's baby steps. He's got a baby to take care of, and he's coming around to droids.
yet.
That's where we're at.
But he still feels like he needs to redeem himself for an infraction that really isn't
Right.
that bad.
Right.
At least in the rest of the Mandalorian culture.
Right.
Let's talk about maybe Kevin. The cooing
I
and
know.
and the ears flopping and him.
He said Pelly.
I
His first word was Pelly.
I don't know. I'm not going with that. It sounds like Pelly. So I actually watching this a second time. Grogu's turn. This is going to be a really weird transition. Just stick with me. It'll make sense. Grogu is turning into R2 and or Chopper.
Right. He's
Where
kinda
you don't, or Chewie.
Yeah.
You don't know what he's saying. There's no subtitles on the
Right.
screen, but you know what he's saying.
Yeah.
And it's a freaking puppet.
Groot.
Groot is that way. Now, it's a little bit different like the first couple seasons with Chopper. Like with Chopper, he's just saying stuff and then everybody's relying like
Relaying what
relaying
he
like in dialogue is saying, "Oh, yeah, you're right. We should go steal the boxes or
Yeah.
whatever, But as you go along with the series, they change a little bit of how Chopper is saying it. And everybody, instead of saying, "Yeah, we should go steal the boxes," are saying, "You know what? You're right." And we as an audience are
have to
expected to
figure
kind
it
of
out.
keep
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And by season 3, by the time you get to season 3, you've spent enough time with Chopper that you're like, "Oh yeah, I know what he's saying."
Yeah.
And he's foul mouthed, by the way. Not R2 like worse than R2. He's a mass murderer. It's a whole conversation. But with Grogu, I'm glad that they came out and said he spent 2 years with Luke.
Yeah.
And if you didn't hear that, I'm telling you right now, it's all over TikTok, it's all over Instagram, it's all over Twitter, it's all over Facebook. Everybody has talked about how Dave Filoni said the first 2 seasons are roughly 2 years. Grogu spent 2 years with Luke, and you get that with him bouncing out of the frickin' N1 into Pelly's hands.
Yeah.
And she even points out, like, "Wow, look at you!" and
Yeah.
stuff. Him running around trying to save Din,
Yeah.
and like he's still
A little bitty leg.
with a little bit like a little shuffle and like trying to run, and then him climbing up the thing. But he's driving his own prim.
Yep.
He's using the Force without having to nappy times.
Yeah.
His whole like trying to take the cup from Bo-Katan, like when he
I
was.
like soup.
I like soup.
I like
Soup.
I like soup.
And of course, Dad figured out that he needed the cup and stuff. But it's just like I'm glad that they spent that time to kind of talk about that because it's important because he's not a full functioning Jedi, but he is
He is much less dependent on Din for everything.
Yeah,
He can as he proved, he can survive to a certain extent on his own.
Yeah.
He got out of the mines, he got into the speeder
and the N1 Starfighter hot rod thing.
Yeah. he got now obviously Red helped, and I even said, now I bet you're glad you took Red because he helped him get there, and he was able to download his
IG-11 baby
data.
parts in the basement with the.
He would have slung Grogu on his back and been down there shooting at everybody instead of going and getting help.
Yeah.
So he is more self-sufficient.
He is more self-sufficient, and I think it's a big deal. Uh, because I think there is going to be a moment as we get down the line where he is going to be part of something.
Yeah.
Uh, that is going to be where he's going to have to defend himself because Daddy and his girlfriend are doing something, and he has to defend himself.
Yeah, and he's still got the little chainmail, the Beskar chainmail on. So all he needs is Yoda's lightsaber.
There was a joke running around that there's going to be a battle later in the season where Bo, Din, and Grogu pass the Darksaber amongst each other. Except the Darksaber is as tall as he is,
Right.
so him holding
If not
like
taller, it might be twice as tall as he is.
He's gonna light it and just like
Boink.
which is a joke I actually want to see in the show. But I just spending the time in this horror fest action adventure episode to talk about what really happened to Mandalore and why it was so important and why Bo-Katan is so important to it. And we got the most backstory with her talking about her father and I swear to God she was going to say Satine at some point in time. That might actually still happen.
I think Satine is more like her parents are a sore spot in her heart, but Satine is still an open wound, and so that's going to be
and especially because spoilers for Clone Wars. Spoilers for Clone Wars. Uh, she was part of the group that was following Maul, and Maul is the one that killed Satine to get to Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Thinking that Obi-Wan would turn to the dark side so they could have a proper fight.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you're right. That is an open wound that's still sitting there. But I feel like with her process of coming back to a position of her own personal strength, I really think that conversation has to be had at some point in time.
At some point, I don't know if that's a conversation for this season or,
I guess it depends on where they're going to end at this season.
Yeah.
Because John's already wrote next season, so he knows where we're going next season, and so that means that everything. And I'm pretty sure he had it like outlined out where he was going to go with these two seasons.
Yeah.
It feels like these two seasons, this season, and next season, are going to be one big arc compared to the story of the week that we got the first season, and then one big arc in the second season. And so
they had to. The second season had to move to the Book of Boba Fett, right? So they probably they it's season 2, Book of Boba Fett, and then now we're here.
We are going to get, and it may not be this season, it may be next season, but we are going to get Bo, Din, Boba, Fennec Shan, IG-11, all standing in a line together.
Motivator.
Yeah, right. They just got to find the right ship. All standing in a line, fighting someone, and it's going to happen. You don't spend that time with Boba and have Din show up and have his back without having some bigger plan for Boba down the line.
I would think so, yeah.
And now, by the way, Cobb Vanth is still out there.
Yeah.
He knows how to wear Beskar.
Yeah.
There's all that extra Beskar in the mines because of the creepy robot.
Yeah.
And there's that shot in the trailer where Bo's leading, or not Bo, when Din's leading a group of Mandalorians across the desert.
Yeah.
Like there is
they could just take a bunch of that Beskar with them and start dispensing it throughout the universe.
And there's also a scene in the trailer where the Children of the Watch, led by Pre Vizsla, are attacking Navarro. So I think ultimately it's going to come down to Pre Vizsla and Paz Vizsla. One of the two. Vizsla, Heavy, we call him Heavy. And the Armorer are going to decide It's time for them to go get the Darksaber so they can take over there. And I think that's what has been kind of hinted at in the Book of Boba Fett, kind of hinted at with her trying to do this, like, we're going this way. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is the
Yeah,
only way to.
maybe. Yeah.
Like, I really feel like that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if one of the two of them showed up in the minds of Moria of Mandalore,
You say it
looking for
enough
the dark
times.
saber, like thinking that whatever was there was going to take.
Right. He comes back and he's like, "Hey, I was there,
Yeah,
and here's my proof." Whatever the head of the. Uh,
he's going to take Bo-Katan with him. He's
maybe.
going to go to the Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan's going to go with him and say, "Okay, yeah, I was there. I saw it."
Yeah. Maybe.
Now I had to save his ass, but all right, we went 30 minutes and not 20.
All right.
That's fine. I told you there's a lot in this episode. So let us know what you thought of the Minds of Mandalore in the comments down below in our discussion about it. Please be nice. It's a requirement around here. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and follow us on all the social media stuff, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Links are in the description down below. And until next time, cult members, good afternoon, good evening, and good night now.